Hey, check 1, 2. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Please have a strap, okay? So you're gonna loop your strap about hip width or so apart. If you don't have a strap, you could always use a belt. And I did send out the link to the free strap, which I'd love for you all to grab if you have a moment after the class. Make sure you grab your free strap if you haven't already. Or any yoga strap will do. Thank you to Second Wind for donating the strap to me. I'm currently practicing on Second Wind, the limited edition Soul Mat. And this one's the black one in gold. The white and gold is also really beautiful. I saw that on a few people's feeds. All right, so you got your strap, put it aside. So we have this idea of anugraha, which is the revelatory power that is within us, that ability to have openings, those moments where everything seems to come together. And that is essentially, on a neurological level, it's just learning, where enough information comes in that the brain can make sense of it. And the thing that's kind of challenging for us is that we'll never really have enough information to make sense of life itself. And that's partly why we have philosophies and religions and things to try to help us to get a hold on the unknown. And ultimately, there is that unknown constant that is ever present within us, that there is the one thing that we all know is that there is an energy, there's a force, there's a power that is within us and all around us that is allowing life to happen. And we just, some people will call it God, some people will call it grace, some people will call it science, energy, nature, consciousness. We've got all these different names for the unknown constant that is creating and sustaining life. And when it comes to this revelatory power that is within us, or I should say it's an action that is underneath the powers of the divine itself, of consciousness itself. One of them is action, and then action is then divided up into 5 different compartments or possibilities. I just mentioned a couple of them actually: the creation, the sustaining. These are 2 of the 5 actions, and the revelation, which we've been talking about with this entire immersion, is really focused on that revelatory power that we have within us. I was trying to think about, well, where are the pitfalls in studying? And we want to have this opening, right? We need to position ourselves in a place that is open-minded, so that we can learn and we can take it all in, and also open to the fact that we might have a revelation today in this very moment, or it might be a lot further down the line. So the teaching of Tantra tells us to have an open-minded approach to our practice, because at any moment we could have that opening where everything makes sense. And the more open we are, again, from a neurological standpoint, the more open-minded we are, the more receptive we are to the unknown, to the things that we do not know yet, the faster we can learn. So that means that the faster that we have those revelations. And I'm talking about from a learning perspective in our body, but when we talk about our off the yoga mat and in our real life, if you're on a adventure of creating something, whether it's your business or your family or your, if there's a big shift you're trying to take in your life, the revelation happens when all of the things that are needed for that shift to occur, when they all come into play, when they all line up. Now, being patient and resilient and staying the course while we're waiting for life to line up can be perhaps one of the major sources of suffering for us all. I think back to when I was younger in my early 20s, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate when you were, maybe some of you are dating now, but I can remember when I was dating back then, the emotional and mental agony of dating the same person basically with a different name and a different face over and over again. I can remember every time kind of getting out of a relationship going like, when is it going to line up? When am I going to find the person that I could actually spend my life with? And then going in and out of saying, well, I don't need somebody. I'm going to be, I'm okay alone, and kind of fighting for myself in that way, and giving up on relationships for a while, for a few years, just not getting into them, and then trying to force myself into one that doesn't work. There's all that, because what life was showing me at the time was I wasn't ready for the person that I was looking for. And that's such a hard pill to swallow. And if someone said that to me, then I probably would be really pissed off and annoyed. But the reality, looking back at myself, I wasn't ready to be in the relationship that I am in with my wife. I wasn't ready to take on the challenges of a long-term relationship and face the obstacles of getting to know myself that happens within relationship. And as I went through each one of those painful experiences, those painful breakups, those painful relationships for that matter, what was happening that I didn't realize was things were actually falling into place. And that was the learning experiences were all coming together for me. It seemed like they were happening to me, but now I'm realizing they were all happening for me so that I could be where I am today. So if we look at things like that in our life, in our past, we can usually see how the things that felt like they were happening to me were actually happening for me. Because in retrospect, we could all see pretty much that life was unfolding for me. Now, yes, we have plenty of painful experiences in our past that still don't make sense to us. And, we've lost friends and family. We've lost jobs. We don't not everything makes sense, because life is ultimately, it's a limited time, and when it comes to death, and when it comes to losing things, that's just part of nature. And that might be something perhaps many of us never get really on board with or comfortable with. But if we recognize that it's part of nature, at least in that respect, while it doesn't make it necessarily easier, it makes it perhaps easier to make sense of. When we recognize that all things that are born will die, and when all things that are created will be destroyed. That's really hard, and it's not really what this immersion is necessarily about. But we do want to look at and look back at, in my opinion, the challenges that we face, that we overcome. And there are challenges, as I'm saying, that perhaps we didn't overcome. And usually those challenges are part of the natural rhythm of life, and we can't really get around them. But there are other challenges, that I want to talk about today, that seem like in the past they were being done to us. And if we look back, we realize that we wouldn't have become the person we are today if they didn't happen for us. And so the word in the Yoga Sutras that they would use is santosha, which means contentment. And contentment is often misunderstood as complacency. So people think that contentment means, well, it is what it is, and I can't do anything about it. But rather, contentment, what it really means, is content with the challenges that I am facing ahead, content with the challenges that I have right now, It's contentment around my karma and my dharma, my life's purpose, which is dharma, and my actions that I have to take in this life, which is karma. So content with the actions that I have to take in order to, for my path to unfold, for this this awakening or breakthrough or revelation, using all those words interchangeably. Revelation, breakthrough, awakening, they're all essentially the same thing, anugraha, okay? They're all part of that revelatory power. So in order for that to happen, to occur, I have to embody a certain level of contentment, which means that I'm not just complacent in the process, but rather participating actively in the process of my unfolding. And that means I have to be content with the challenges that I am facing ahead. Santosha. Content with the challenges of my life, because ultimately they're happening for me. It's a mindset that we're cultivating. And you could say I believe that or I don't believe that. It's not about belief. It's about a mindset that we take action with what is happening now. And we accept that we have challenges. We accept that there are things in this life that we cannot control. And we accept the things that we can control, and we take actions with those. We let go of what we cannot control, and we take action with what we can control. We cannot control life and death, right? We cannot control how long we sustain our life, or how long our friends and family sustain their lives, or the tree outside, whether it lives or dies. And we cannot control the outcomes of our actions, but we can control our actions. So if the outcomes are not matching, we can't change the outcomes, but what we can change is our actions. And this is what Santosha is all about. Santosha is about contentment with the road ahead and the current path and foot that I'm stepping in front of me right now. Content with that, which does not mean complacency. It does not mean non-action. It means content with the actions I must take. If it meant non-action, then why would we ever do asana? You know, like, should we just be content with the way my body is if I do nothing about it? No, that's teaching. The teaching is content with the challenges on my yoga mat of strengthening my muscles, of developing focus in my mind, content with the challenges that I face on the yoga mat, right? Not complacent and let my body just kind of wither away. I can't control when I die, but I can control the quality of my life as I live it. Or at least, let me say this, the quality of my physical form to the best of my ability. I can control my actions. Maybe I can't control certain things that happen to me, such as genetics. I can't control the perhaps something that has been passed down, or I can't control necessarily cancer or things like this. But what I can control is how I take care of the body that I have under the conditions that I have it. Okay, so let's get practicing contentment. Santosha today is the focus. Again, content with the challenges that I face on the mat. And I know all of you have embodied that already. If you made it through the last practice, you're right on board. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm freezing over here, to be honest. You can probably hear me shaking a little bit. I should have turned on the heat before practice. But I want to warm up quickly, rapidly. So hopefully you're on board with that. I don't know where you are right now, so it might be different. So grab your strap. You're going to step in it and tighten it. It's above the knee height. And you tighten it, and then you'll lean side to side, back and forth. And as you lean side to side, you're going to try to pull the strap really tight, okay? So that your legs are pulling one another apart, okay? And as you're doing that, I'd like you to pick your pinky toe up as well on each side, boom. And then make sure your knees aren't turning out. Your knees are going to stay straight forward, slightly in as you do that, so you get the full meat of the muscle here. These muscles called the abductors, okay? The abductors, which are the gluteus medius, the minimus, the TFL, tensor fascia lata. These muscles that exist along the outer hips tend to be asleep for most people, okay? So when the abductors are asleep, then our hips don't have enough stability, and oftentimes, or they're overly tense for that matter. Whew, take a break for a second. And if we have, let's go through the scenarios. If we have weak outer hips, then we tend to walk like this, where we sag the hips out to the side, a little bit too sassy, and that hurts the sacrum, which is the area right between the pelvis here, and the low back area. It becomes overly mobilized, and you could have disc injuries. A lot of women have that because their outer hips are overly mobile, especially if you were pregnant. That's, these muscles become more lax and the movement becomes more increased, and then you stand like this with the baby. And so the outer hips being too weak and not enough tension will cause usually low back and sacral issues, but also in the hips themselves, you have some issues. Now, opposite is true if you have really tight outer hips. Let's go again, back and forth. If you have really tight outer hips, then the pelvis doesn't have enough room for movement. And what happens there, usually it's a different type of back injury. It's not so much the discs, the intervertebral discs that have issues there. You'll feel more likely a lot of muscle tension down through the IT band, and you might, which is coming from the gluteus maximus and the TFL here, these two muscles, if they're, the TFL and the gluteus maximus, both of those muscles help to abduct the legs. But what happens is the IT band then connects down to the outer shin, can throw the knees out of alignment if your outer hips are really tight. And that's what I came into this yoga practice with. Keep going. Let's warm up the body back and forth, back and forth. My abductors, the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius, the minimus, the TFL, all those muscles around the outer hips there, the gluteus maximus runs along all the way to the outer hip here. All those muscles were super tight. And I didn't realize the IT band connects to the tibia, which is your shin bone. Isn't that crazy? Your buttock muscle attaches all the way below the knee joint at the shin bone. And so when that IT band is tight, it pulls on your shin. Let's go back again, try it one more time. And it can rotate the shin out of alignment. It could pull compression in the outer knee there. And then it could cause all sorts of issues when you're doing things like pigeon pose. Okay, now release. You should feel those outer hip muscles really active. Whew. What's the word? Heated up, I guess. Heated up. Heat up. Like, is there a past tense to heat? Anyway, put this strap aside and come to the front of your yoga mat. So now that these muscles are hot, I guess the way you would say it, I'm learning English these days. We want to keep the awareness going in these hips as we move through. So let's pause in Tadasana, and I'm going to have you see that your big toe faces straight forward. Soften your inner knees and move your inner upper thighs, your groin slightly back until it feels like you're turning your legs in a little bit. Okay, if you move your inner groins back, you'll feel your butt stick out just a bit. Okay, and you'll probably start to feel the outer hip muscles activate again. If not, then press the back of your hamstrings slightly apart. I have an automatic pattern where my toes start to activate because I'm used to that once my outer hips engage. So if you don't have that pattern, I'd suggest either lift your toes up for now, which will work just fine, or you do the big toe and the pinky toe pressing down. Okay, but the inner thighs are going back, hamstrings and buttocks are pressing slightly apart, and you'll feel the outer hip muscles still awakening. Okay, now hopefully you formed a gentle curve in the low back, which is natural. If your curve is too small, you start to tuck the tailbone. If your curve is too big, which would look something like this. Okay, and usually I should move my elbow out of the way. Usually if you look like this, you'd have to video yourself to see how intense that curve is. But most people think their curve is bigger than it is because we sit in a rounded position most of the day. So this feels extreme for a lot of people. But if you just have a little bit of a curve in your low back, that's a good thing. You want your low back to be curved. But you can start to tuck your tail a little bit in order to balance out the curve. So when you tuck your tail, please don't move your pelvis forward. Again, move your inner thighs back. Okay, so your inner thighs are back, your heels are pressing apart, and then there's a micro tuck of the tail just till you feel the deep glute muscles underneath here activating. Okay, now lift and bring the skull back, shoulders back. And if you feel that your upper chest is lifting too much, just soften the front ribs down, keeping the head back. Okay, soften the front ribs down, head back. Hold there. Tadasana. Take a breath in. And a breath out. Do you still feel your outer hips turning on? I hope so. If not, the inner thighs go back, the hamstrings push apart. The slight tuck of the tail. Inhale, reach the arms to the sky. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Step the left foot back as you exhale. And place the hands on the front knee. You're gonna take your right hand outside the right knee and gently, you're gonna, with your right hand, push across, and then with your knee, push out into the hand. And you should feel your outer hips again awaken along the right side. Okay, keeping that, take your left arm up on the diagonal, and let's take 3 breaths. Inhale. Exhale, back thigh is strong, inner leg to the sky. And then tuck your right sit bone slightly underneath. Last breath. And release. Step into plank pose, inhale. Chaturanga. Little cobra, inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, release. 2 more, inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the heart. And exhale. All fours, hands and knees. Tuck the toes. Exhale, down dog. Let's take a few breaths in the down dog. If you like to move, you're welcome to. Sometimes I just like to hold the posture and really push the hips up and back to give the hamstrings a nice stretch. One more breath. Lift the heels up on the inhale. Walk, step, or hop to the front of the yoga mat. Halfway lift when you get there. Inhale and pause. Okay, now see if you can get your thumbs firmly planted on the ground out in front of you. It probably means leaning forward a lot more. Okay, if you need blocks, please use them. Lift your toes up and then press your big toes down. And then try to press your pinky toes down as well, if possible, with the other 3 toes lifted, or all the toes pressing down, but like still feeling, there's a muscle called the tibialis anterior at the front of your shin here that is kind of how do I explain this? It's active when you lift the toes up and you lean forward a little bit. You want to keep it active as you press your toes down. That's why if you lift the 3 middle toes up, it helps you kind of keep the tibialis activated along with the extensors of the toes active so that both sides of the ankle are firm and active. Now, this way we don't over rotate at the ankles when we do this next action. You're going to turn your thighs inward a little bit without moving your ankles or your knees. Turn the upper thighs in by pressing the back of your hamstrings away from each other. And now as you press the back of your hamstrings away, backs of your hamstrings away from one another, you can like kind of pull them apart a little bit so you understand the action. You'll feel your outer hips start to awaken, the abductor group. Okay, keeping that, just gently tuck the tail and lift the heart up higher until your thumbs come off the ground, but keep leaning forward. Okay, so at this point, your hips are more or less over your heels, creating like a tabletop sort of position. Take a full breath, lengthen forward.
Exhale now, bend the elbows, lean forward and bow. To the sun, rise, Urdhva Hastasana, tuck the tail to rise. Hands to heart, Samasthiti. Inhale, reach up. To the earth, bow, Uttanasana. Half lift, inhale. Right foot steps back. Push down, rise. Hands on the front knee. Okay, so now it's your left hand goes to the outer knee. Your hand is going to push your knee inward, but your knee is going to resist. So your knee should still be right over the ankle bone when this happens. So your hand puts a little pressure on the leg just to give it resistance, but you're not changing any alignments. The knee's still straight forward, okay? But your knee presses out into your hands, so your outer buttocks. This will be the gluteus maximus, the abductors here, the medius and the minimus, and the TFL will probably all start to fire up in this position when you press your knee out into your hand. Now take the right arm up on the diagonal. Let's do 3 breaths. Inhale. Back thigh firmed up, front sit bone tucked underneath. One more breath. Hands to the ground. Plank pose on the in-breath. Lean forward and lower. Okay, interlace the hands behind the back. Slide your hands to your low back and shrug your shoulders toward the ears a little bit and up. Stretch the hands to the sky. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, soften. 2 more. Inhale, lift up. Exhale. Inhale. And release. Hands to the ground. Inhale, all fours. Tuck the toes. Exhale, down dog. Let's take a full breath in. And out. Now in this down dog, we're going to do what we did similar in Tadasana. Lift your toes up and your heels slightly up, okay? But now with your shoulders, push the ground away so your hips go up and back. So your weight is more in your feet now. And then press the back of your hamstrings away from one another. Okay, so press the heels outward. If you can, you put your big toe and pinky toe down, but push the backs of your hamstrings away from each other. So your outer hips start to activate. Now, try to find not your upper back, but your low back where your pelvis is. Try to lift your sit bones, your back of your buttocks up to the sky, so your low back starts to activate. Take a full breath in and out. One more. Lift the heels up, inhale, look forward. Walk, step, or hop on the exhale. Come to Ardha Uttanasana, halfway lift. Pause, hold. Now in Ardha Uttanasana, what happens for most people is they lean back and they tuck their tail and they release the hamstrings like this, or they do something like this. Okay, so what that'll do is just completely continue developing the tension in those muscles. But instead, if you lean forward, it takes the tension out of those muscles and allows you to now move your pelvis up to the sky, which is a stretch of the hamstrings, and then press your hamstrings apart from one another so you feel your outer hip muscles. Now, if it becomes too strenuous on the hamstrings, then you can still lean forward, but actively tuck your tailbone towards the ground, and that will release the tension on the hamstrings, or release the stretch on the hamstrings, I should say, and start to engage them. And that's really important if you have any hamstring tears, or if the stretch is just too intense, okay? So you would really tuck the tailbone. Or if you're very flexible, you also want to activate the hamstrings so that you don't overstretch. Take one more breath in, pushing the hamstrings apart, and exhale, bow. To the sunrise, Urdhva Hastasana. To the heart as you exhale. Okay, inhale, reach up, Urdhva Hastasana. Bow to the earth, Uttanasana, forward fold. half lift on the inhale. Let's step both feet back to down dog. Forward to plank pose, inhale. Chaturanga, exhale. Cobra or up dog, your choice. Exhale, down dog. Right leg to the sky, inhale. Step forward. Push down, rise, high lunge. Down dog, exhale. Plank pose, inhale. Back to down dog, exhale. Left side up to the sky. Step forward. Inhale, rise. Down dog, exhale. Plank pose, inhale around the back, grip your fingers into the ground. Down dog, exhale. Let's take a full breath in and a breath out. And as we're breathing here, reminder, Santosha is contentment with the challenges we face. And to actively seek the breakthroughs and the revelations, the openings in our life means to embrace the challenges, to be content with the challenges that lie ahead of us, like the challenges of our path, the unfolding of our dharma, our life's purpose. Or even not, it doesn't have to be so big as our life purpose, just if it's body maintenance, content with the challenges of activating my muscles and becoming more aware of this physical form. This is Santosha. Inhale, lift the heels up, look forward. Empty it out, hop or step to the front. Halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale and bow. Bend the knees now. Come to chair pose. And with your hands on your knees, sit low. Okay, lift your toes up for now. Again, we're just going to try to stabilize the ankle. When we start manipulating the thigh bones and so on and so forth, the tendency is to roll at the ankle joints. So you're going to lift your toes up so you become aware that your ankles, we want our shin to be perpendicular to the ground, straight up and down, not out to the sides or in, straight up and down. Now, you can do this with the toes lifted the whole time, or if you can, your big toe, pinky toe presses down. But either way is fine. Either toes fully lifted. That's how I learned how to do the big toe and pinky toe thing, is I started by using my whole practice. I would have my toes lifted, and that strengthened the muscles, the extensors of the toes for a while, and the front shin muscles, which so many of us tend to be weak at. So it can be very helpful to keep the toes lifted. Okay, moving forward. Press your back of your heels out until you feel like your pants in the back there and your buttocks widens a little bit. That's the idea. Okay, keeping that sit a little bit lower and keep pressing the back of your hamstrings apart. If you notice your knees move out, then just bring the knees back in, straight forward with the knees, out with the buttocks, sit low. Lift the heart up. Inhale, reach the arms up. Low back muscles should be fired up. Outer hip muscles awakened, and then you can micro tuck your tailbone without really movement. Just think about tucking your tail until your glute muscles fire up. The deep buttock muscles actually fire up. Take a full breath in and out. Your low back should be awakened. Inhale and exhale. One more. Exhale, bow forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, halfway lift, press the hamstrings and buttocks apart. Step or hop back, Chaturanga. Cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Right leg to the sky, inhale. Step forward. Inhale, rise, high lunge. Open up, Virabhadrasana 2. Hands to the hips for a moment. Now I'm going to introduce you to an interesting concept of the back leg. So we talk a lot about, in the last practice, the front of the shin and the big toe squeezing towards the front foot. I'd like you to continue that But think about the back heel and back of your back hamstring pressing outward. Okay, what that would continue is a full rotation of the leg. So the front of the leg squeezes in, adductors. The back of the leg pushes out, abductors. Now those two muscle groups are what create rotation. They play together in order to rotate the thigh internally. So back of the hamstring pushes away, outer hips. Front of the thighs turns in, inner thighs. That's going to be very hard for most of you trying to attempt this, and your pelvis is going to feel all wonky and it might be awkward. Okay, now you'll see when you do that, you can even see it in my knee, is winging in because now the outer hips of my front leg are not active. So make sure your hips aren't pressing forward like this. They are back so that you can really rotate the back thigh bone properly. Now the front hand presses the outer knee. The knee pushes out into the hand. And in order to do that, I usually lift my big toe up a little bit. That helps me activate what I call the earth line. You that have done the, I think it was the August immersion that we did that. The earth line, it really comes from the outer buttocks, the gluteus muscles down through the outer foot. Okay, so when you press your knee out, if you lift your big toe up, it tends to be easier to get the abductors turned on. If you can press the big toe back down, great. If not, don't worry. Micro tuck the tailbone or zip the fly slightly up and take the arms out to the sides. Like pull, yeah, the belly upward. Let's do 2 more breaths. One more breath. Reverse warrior. Inhale. Exhale, hands to the ground. Okay, pause. Straighten through both legs as you pivot the back heel up. Inhale. Exhale and bow. One breath in. One breath out. Bend the front knee. Inhale. Step downward facing dog. Plank pose. Inhale, grip the ground. Exhale, down dog. Left leg to the sky. Inhale. Step forward. Exhale. High lunge. Rise up. And open Virabhadrasana 2. Hands to the hips. Pause. All right, so your back thigh, the hamstring lifts up and pulls back. The front of the back thigh turns inward and squeezes forward. Okay, now, like I said last class, getting those muscle coordinations is downright impossible at first. You won't just get it when I say it like, oh yes, you know, he made it sound so clear. These are things that you have to think about them over and over and over again while being in your body, seeing me do it, trying them, and eventually the unfolding of muscle patterns develop. Okay, so from attention, if you place your attention on this area of the body and you try to do it over and over and over again, eventually the neurological pathways form and you have that anugraha, that awakening, that opening, that breakthrough of understanding your physical form. So back thigh pushes apart, front shin squeezes in. Okay, then bend the front knee a little bit deeper and you can then micro tuck the tail. Now, if you're having trouble with the front knee, winging in, which most of us do, you can lift your big toe up and use your hand to press your knee out into your hand so you get the outer abductor group turned on, okay? It's gonna feel like a tug of war between your two legs trying to do opposite actions. The back thigh trying to turn in, the front thigh trying to turn out. Those are opposing directions for the thigh bones, which ultimately leads to a lot of strength in the hips, a lot of stability, a lot of muscle integrity. Okay, keeping that strength and stability to the best of your ability, take the arms out to the sides. Gaze over the front hand. Let's take a few breaths. Reverse warrior, inhale. Exhale, hands to the ground. Pivot the back heel up. Inhale, straighten through the front leg. Look forward. Exhale and bow. Hold here. Enjoy a breath in. And out. Inhale, bend the front knee. Look forward. Down dog. As you exhale, fingers grip the ground. Inhale forward, plank pose. Exhale, down dog. 3 breaths. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more breath. Lift the heels up, look forward. Empty the breath out, hop or step lightly. Halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale and bow. Bend the knees, chair pose, Utkatasana. Pause, exhale, hands onto the outer knees. Now, you know what? Let's stand up for a second. Grab your strap. Okay. Step in the strap. Place your strap at the upper thighs or middle thigh, let's say. Okay. And with the strap, we'll do chair pose. And you're going to try to press the back of the strap, particularly the back side of the strap, apart. So sit. As you sit, now press the back of your strap apart and really tighten it up. Now, if you need to, if your feet are too wide, you can tighten the strap significantly. Sit low, move your hips back. Again, you can lift your toes up for the ankles so that you're not rolling at the ankles, but you're really trying to get the outer hips to awaken. Sit low as you push the back of your strap and legs apart. Now, micro tuck, just a little tuck of the tail. You shouldn't even be able to see it from the outside. Just a little tuck to activate the glutes. Lift the belly up, lift the heart up. Your chest should be upright. That's from the strength of your low back. Not so much your upper back should be kind of relaxed. Your low back fired up. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale here. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more. Inhale. Exhale, bow forward. Now you're going to keep the strap. Halfway lift. And hold here. Lean forward a little bit. If you get a cramp in your outer hips, just squeeze your legs in toward each other for a moment. Otherwise, push the back of your hamstrings out away from each other to try to get the outer hips to engage. Keeping that, lift your heart up a little bit higher and start to lift your sit bones so you try to get your low back to engage. Take an inhale and an exhale. You can micro tuck the tailbone, but trying to keep the low back engaged, the best of your ability. 1 more breath. Now bow. Now, is it possible when you bow to lean forward still, to press the back of the legs apart, to keep your low back engaged while rounding the upper back? One more breath. Place the hands to the ground. Okay, keep the strap. You're going to just, you can walk if you need to, or you can hop a few times back to downward facing dog. Okay, give your outer hips a break for a second by squeezing the front of your shins toward each other and come forward to plank pose. Scoop the tailbone around the upper back and hold. Squeeze the shins in toward each other to give the outer hips a break and lower chaturanga. Now, slide the hands wide, fingertips. Push the strap apart with your legs, round the back gently, and soften the chest forward. Press the low belly forward. Lift the heart up. And release. If that's too compressive on your low back, it might be because the strap is too tight. Okay, so let's come back to all fours, hands and knees. But I'd like you to keep the strap where it is because we're going to use this for down dog. Tuck your toes, downward facing dog. All right. In your down dog, lift your toes up. A little lift of the heels is okay. Push your shoulders to your ears, especially those of you that were in the September immersion. really, you should awaken the shoulders by elevating the scapula toward the ears. Okay, that will move your hips up and back. It'll also take the weight out of the shoulder girdle. That's what we want. And now press the back of your legs apart and lift the bum up to the sky. Your low back tries to arch. Now, what happens for most of humanity when I say lift your buttocks up is they drop the chest down because it feels like the hips went up above the chest. You actually want to keep your chest lifted away from the ground and just use your back muscles. So let's do this. You know what? Bend your knees and try this with me. You can watch me maybe one round. You can tuck your tail and you can arc your low back. This is posterior tilt and this is anterior tilt. Try to keep anterior tilt while pressing the backs of the legs apart, and don't drop the chest towards the ground. And you'll start to really feel like this is the same pose as Ardha Uttanasana, basically just a little bit elongated, okay? And that's probably enough for you. Walk the feet to the front of the yoga mat, halfway lift. And exhale, bow. Hands to the hips and rise up. All right, release your strap. Okay, I want to get back to the strap in a second, but I also want to give your outer hips a break so that you don't get, fully cramped up here. Let's take the toes and face them outward. So into goddess pose like we did last practice. And then let's just give the outer hips a break by squeezing the knees into the hands. So squeeze your knees inward and see if you can get your inner thigh muscles to activate. Keeping that, scoop your tail slightly and lift the heart up. Keep squeezing in with your shins and your knees so you really feel the inner thighs, your adductor muscles tone, the ones that we worked on last practice. Let's hold here for 3 more breaths. One more breath. That's a lie. 2 more breaths. Now 1 more breath. And stand up. Take your left leg up. Interlace your hands underneath your left leg. Bring your shoulders up and back. And with your left leg, press down into your hands and kick forward. Okay, so we're just awaken the hamstrings here. Let's do 5 breaths. Inhale. Buttocks back a little bit. Inhale. 3 more breaths. Santosha means contentment with the challenges that we face along our path to the unfolding, to the opening, to the awakening, to the breakthrough, to the anugraha revelation. Content with what is happening for us, the timing it takes for things to unfold, okay, and release. And it's very hard, especially if we don't necessarily trust in the process, if we don't trust in life, we don't trust in the new situation that we're in, we don't trust that things are going to happen for us. If that trust isn't established, then it's very hard to be patient or content with the unfolding of life. It's very challenging to be to embody santosha in new unknown territory in our life, and that's usually where this whole concept of contraction and opening, or concealment and revelation is occurring in new circumstances. And that's why we as humans find it so challenging to embrace the concealment phase, the phase where things are not unfolding, or doesn't feel like things are unfolding, but really things are just they're unfolding in a way that maybe is challenging us. Okay, so other side, press the leg down and reach the leg back. Now, if you asked me when I was 22 in that relationship that was so emotionally and mentally challenging, if that was happening for me, I'd be like, no way, right? And but in hindsight, the lessons I learned from that and the person I've become because of that has really allowed me to be where I am today in the relationship that I am in now. And I'm using relationship because most of us can kind of relate to relationships, but this happens in your work life, in your passions, it happens in your purpose, it happens in your family life, it happens in all things that we pursue.
Okay, and then release. It happens on the physical yoga mat. We face these challenges. If it's new for us, we don't believe that we can do it, and then suddenly things over time, the challenges we face, they add up. We develop muscle coordination, we develop body awareness, and then things start to open. And I bet a lot of you practicing today, if you look back to who you were when you started practicing yoga, you're like, wow, I never thought I could do these things. And that's probably what drives you to continue to practice, right? And that realization that those challenges you faced in the beginning, that disbelief that you could ever do X, Y, and Z was disproven from your actions. And so, it's just repeating that same process that you were so familiar with from stepping onto the mat in the first place and trying to find a mindset of trusting in the process. Okay, so you grab your strap, and the posture that I'd like to work on today, just check the timing, I don't have my watch nearby. All right, cool, perfect. The posture I like to work on today is actually a movement. It's not a posture at all. It's from down dog, hop, to Uttanasana, forward fold. A lot of you have done this with me before, but I'd like you to focus on the action today of your outer hips engaging. Maybe I should explain why this is helpful. So one of your outer hip muscles is called the TFL, tensor fascia lata. It's right here on the outer hip, but kind of in the front, and it runs down and attaches to the IT band. When that muscle is active, it helps to, it's a hip flexor. That means the thigh will be closer to your chest. It flexes at the hip. It pulls the thigh closer to your chest. Okay. Now that hip flexor, when it's active, it makes your legs lighter because it brings the thighs, the heavy legs, close to your upper body. So when you jump from down dog forward, if your legs come closer and tighter into your chest, you will feel lighter. It's like if I held, for example, if I held my second wind yoga mat out here, this is very heavy. It's far away from my center. But if I hold it in here, right to the core, you see how it's effortless, right? It's easy, it's light. No matter, the mat did not change its weight. It's the same weight. But where it is in relationship to my center is much different. So a lot of different muscles have to activate for me to hold the yoga mat out here. Now that's great. It's all well and good to strengthen and intentionally do that out here. But if I'm trying to do an action, I want to do it with efficiency to a certain degree so that I can attain the action first. And then sure, maybe later on I can challenge that and do something different. But the real first key to being able to do a hop forward is to activate TFL, tensor fascia lata, because it's a big hip flexor and it'll keep the legs tight to the center of your body, making things a lot easier for you. So one thing you heard me say is press the backs of your legs apart. Press the backs of your legs apart. That is for the abductors. In particular, the TFL is going to be the one that we're aiming for. So turning, the TFL does a couple of things. It rotates the thighs in, it abducts the legs, and it hip flexes. It flexes the thigh closer to the chest. So that means if we turn the legs in and press out while we bring the thighs close to the chest, that's targeting all three actions of the TFL. That's what we need to do. So we need to turn the legs in, press the legs apart, and squeeze the legs towards the chest. That will target TFL and make our legs tighter. That's the goal, okay? Now, one thing I got to be honest with is you have to have strong hands in order to do a jump forward comfortably. So no matter how strong your hip flexors are and how light your legs become, if you're fearful of being on your hands, you just won't jump forward enough. So before we do anything, you're going to come to all fours, hands and knees. And on all fours, hands and knees, I'd like you to grip your fingers into the ground. Dig your fingers into the earth. And I do this thing that I learned from hand balancing. You have the peak of your finger up and you press the finger pads down. But if that doesn't work for you, you can just dig your fingertips into the ground rather than your finger pads. But either way, the idea here is your fingers grip the earth. Now, these are your brakes. And so you can grip the ground and lean forward and back a few times. And when you do, lean forward slowly, grip your fingers into the earth and push yourself back. So you lean forward, grip, push yourself back to
Lean forward, grip, push with your fingers back. Even if the heel of the hand like comes up as a result, that's okay. Push your way back. Okay, so you start to learn how to resist with your hands. Okay, we're going to use this towards the middle and end of the immersion. We're going to be really working the forearms for arm balances. As I mentioned, hip openers are really useful in arm balance practices. So you're going to want to learn a little bit about the strength of your forearms here, gripping the fingers into the ground, leaning into them and resisting. Okay, so you can lean, push with your fingers, lean, push with your fingers, and that's the flexors of the wrist and the fingers. And once those develop over the course of time, of course, then you'll feel more confident on your hands. So for now, all you need to think about is just dig your fingers into the ground, and that will activate the flexors of the wrist. And if you're still not feeling it, if you don't know, what you can do is take one hand and try to pick up the opposite finger, and then don't let your fingers lift up off the ground. And what will happen is if you really keep your fingers down on the ground, then that's your wrist flexors and the flexors of your fingers really activating. Okay. Okay. Now give your hands a break so that we don't overwork the wrists. These muscles are super long. I mean, some of them run from the fingertip all the way up through the forearm. So when you have a long, thin muscle, it's very easy to strain it. So we don't want to overwork those. It's better to work the wrist over time. So you can roll your wrists. Now, what we're going to do before we do the jump forward is Uttanasana forward fold. So you'll take your hands to either side of your hips. And I think we did this last practice with wide-legged forward folds. Lift your hips up. Soften your knees and stick your bum back behind you so that you sit more at the front of the pelvis. You can pull your buttocks back, not really the skin necessarily, but trying to tip your pelvis forward more. My suggestion is you squeeze the strap apart from your legs so your feet are going to be fairly wide, okay? Now, you ready? This is similar to what we did last practice. Place your palms firmly on the ground and do your best. You're going to laugh at this. Ready? Do your best to lift one leg up and release it back down and press the heel back into the earth when you finish. So then lift the other leg up, press it back down and push down into the earth so your buttocks fires up. Lift the first leg up again, press it back down, lift the other leg up and back down. I know you love this, right? Up and down, up and down. And just think, next practice is hip flexor strengthening. So you'll be doing a lot more of those to come. But that's really that lifting of the leg up. That's hip flexors activating. One of those is your TFL, which happens to be an abductor as well, an outer hip muscle. Okay, so now press the strap apart. Think about lifting the legs up, but instead of actually lifting the legs up, move your butt back and tip your pelvis forward. Walk your hands forward. Okay, lengthen the solar plexus, the low belly towards your thighs. Try to get your belly to touch your thighs. Now, for some of you, you're laughing because this is never going to happen. You're right; it's like impossible. So you're going to put your butt up on a bunch of blankets up here, and it's going to make your life so much easier. Or a rolled up or folded up yoga mat. Now, pressing the strap apart to get the abductors turned on. In particular, if you feel the front of your outer hips, you get this nice meaty muscle, hopefully, called your TFL toned. And you want to keep your feet flexed. And now the goal will be to be able to be here and get your hands eventually past your feet. Okay, just like this. You see how my hand is past my feet? That's what's required, where the thigh is touching the belly and the arms can actually go past, the hand can go past the toes. That's what's required for a nice light hop forward. Okay, and then release. Whew. Now, you can still do the hop forward, even if you're over here. It's just you'll know that the last part is always gonna be heavier until you have that strength of your abductors to be able to get, and the flexibility of your hamstrings to be able to get into this position here. It then will land light, because this requirement is how the legs can come close to the chest without touching the ground. Now, I should mention again, just in case the ego is starting to kick in, it's not about the jump forward as it is about understanding how to activate your low back muscles, your TFL, and how to stay active in those two muscle groups while still being in a deep hamstring stretch, okay? This position right here has a lot of information that has nothing to do with the jump forward at all, but a lot of information for the body to learn and awaken. So we got one more pose before we try the jump forward, and that is you're gonna take your hands behind you for a moment and lift up. My favorite boat pose, which we'll be doing again next practice. Straighten the legs, and now try to lift your arms and reach past your toes the best of your ability. Pull the strap apart since we're really focused on the abductors, the outer hips today. Of course, we're also working the hip flexors, which we'll be working next practice. But try to bring the legs close to your chest and reach the hands past the toes if possible. Okay, pull the strap apart, pull it apart, and release. Woo! Okay, that's a hard one. So now, just like that posture, and just like the seated forward fold that we just did, and just like our Uttanasana that we did earlier, and just like our downward facing dog, just like the chair pose, all we do is jump forward. Now, I've got a tip for you, because if your hamstrings are tight and this was not possible, and this was really challenging, then don't worry, I've got a tip for you. But first, pause and watch me do the jump forward. I'm going to pull the strap apart. Move my tail back there. I'm going to show you one strong jump forward so that you have an understanding and a visual, what's called mirror neurons inside of your brain are going to help you do it once you see it done well. Okay, so I grip the ground with my fingers and I push with my hands. Now, I lift the heels up and I stick my bum to the sky. That's the action that's going to start to do hip flexion, the abductor muscles, as well as, in particular, the TFL is going to activate. Okay, so I look forward, lift the heels, empty the breath, hop, and pull the strap apart. Pull the strap apart as I hop. Okay, that is going to take you a few rounds of kind of figuring out. So the step one, when you do it the first round, is you're going to take a shorter stance, almost like you're in Ardha Uttanasana. Bend the knees and stick your bum up, and you'll pull the strap apart, fingers grip the ground. Okay? Now, the tip I have for you is to do it with bent knees if your hamstrings are tight. Because what's important is that your thighs are close to your chest, not that your legs are straight. So I'll show you one more time before you get into it. I'll do it with bent knees. Okay? So here I am. And jump forward, pull the strap apart, grip the ground, bent knees, keeps it light, okay? So if you're new to the jump forward, completely new to it, my suggestion is, first of all, have a couch cushion in front of your face, a nice big fluffy cushion, and your fingers are right up against the couch cushion so that it's there for you, okay? Second is, don't go all out, but rather do small bunny hops, okay? Little hops, and pull the strap apart. So here's what you'll do. Step one, do this with me now. Grip your fingers into the ground, and you're gonna do a jump forward about 3 inches, which is, I guess, like 5 centimeters, okay? Grip the ground, look forward, pull the strap apart, and jump 3 inches forward. Whoop. Okay, now do it again. Lean forward, grip the ground, pull the strap apart, jump 3 inches forward. Whoop. Okay, one more time. Lean forward, grip the ground, push the ground away, and pull the strap apart to jump forward. Let's do it again on the way back, okay? So push the hands into the ground, bend the knees, pull the strap apart, hop back an inch or two. Sorry, 3 inches. That was like 6 inches. Again, lean forward into your fingers, pull the strap apart, hop back. And one more time, little bunny hops. And now you're more like down dog, okay? Now you're gonna jump half the way forward. Bend the knees, lift the heels up, look forward, grip the ground. Pull the strap apart and jump halfway forward. Whoop. Let's do that again. Jump back into down dog. Pull the strap apart, hop back, down dog. Now jump 3/4 of the way forward. Pull the strap apart, lift the heels up, look forward, grip the ground, pull the strap apart as you hop 3/4 of the way forward. And then back to down dog. All right, and take a break. All right, so now you're gonna try, and you just wanna give your wrist a break, okay? Now you're gonna try the full jump from down dog to basically Uttanasana or Ardha Uttanasana, half lift. And I think it's easier to think half lift than it is to do forward fold personally. So because you're looking forward, your heart is forward, it makes it a little bit easier on you. The key again, press the back of your hamstrings apart for the outer hips to engage. Your fingers must be gripping the ground. Okay, so those are the two key points. Fingers grip the ground, back of the legs apart. And as you hop, think of pushing the strap away from, we're tightening the strap by pushing your legs away from each other. All right, so watch one more time. I'm going to do the jump forward. I lift the heels, look forward. Grip the ground, bend the knees, and stick the bum to the sky. I keep the bum to the sky as I press the strap apart to hop. Push apart as I hop. Okay, so bum sticks up, push apart, and hop. Let's try it together. Remember, couch cushion in front, and just jump the best you can. You could keep your knees bent. You don't have to jump all the way forward by any means. Just do a little hop, pushing the legs apart, getting the outer hips, the TFL active, okay? Don't forget, fingers active, bend the knees, stick your bum up to the sky, look forward, hop by pushing the strap apart. And inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and bow. All right. Undo the strap. And with all that, you probably feel like kind of funny in the hips, right? They're definitely loosened up now, I'm sure. All right, so now let's do a pigeon pose, right shin across the mat. And that should feel quite nice after those strengtheners. Back toes tucked, turn the leg in and move back. Okay. Today, take your left elbow down across the mat and your right hand is going to help prop you up and twist your torso to the right. Back toes tucked to help the back thigh turns in. Now move your body weight so that your left armpit goes towards your foot. So lean to the left as you twist. Okay, come on up. Step back. Left shin across. Back toes tucked, turn the back thigh in and reach the heel back. Take your right elbow across and your left hand helps you twist. And lean back away from your front knee. And as you lean back, turn the belly, back thigh turns in, and try to get your right armpit towards your left foot. And release. Down dog. Right foot forward, back knee comes down. Take your left hand out to the left, right foot a little to the right. And we take a thigh stretch. Just a few breaths. Release the front line of the hip flexors that we definitely strengthened as we were hopping forward. And release. Switch sides.
Now you have effort into your practice. You've focused your attention, you've focused your energy in your physical body. Tried to cultivate a mindset of contentment for the physical practice that is here for us ultimately, right? There's this magnificent practice that we get to step onto our yoga mat and get to know our physical body. And yes, it provides us with challenges mentally, emotionally, physically, hands down, lots of challenges. But ultimately, it's quite fun and enjoyable. And that's just a different way of treating challenge, to enjoy it, to embrace it. And that's what Santosha is really about. Even beyond contentment, it's like when you really master something, it's a mindset, not a skill. A mindset of really enjoying the challenges of learning. And that's where the breakthroughs happen fastest. Okay, release. All right, find a block or a blanket. And today we're going to do meditation. We were supposed to do it on Tuesday, but the feed got cut off and everything. So we're going to do it today. But you want to sit up either on a chair, blocks, or blankets. And I'm going to bring the camera closer. Whatever props you need, grab them and come back to your yoga mat. If you want a blanket or anything, I'm just putting on socks because it is cold here. I've got my phone. I apologize for time purposes. I'm not staring at it for message purposes. Take a comfortable position. I like a seated position. Kneeling on a block is something that I prefer. Okay, this does require some flexibility in the hips. If you sit cross-legged, I highly recommend having blankets underneath. Otherwise, sitting on a chair with your feet on the ground is great. Okay, so what I can do is send you in the next email, I'll send you the blog of 3 seated positions of how you can sit. So if you feel uncomfortable in this practice, this way you'll have something for the next practice, okay? So you're always welcome to take Shavasana if sitting is just way too challenging for you, but seated meditation and Shavasana are not the same practice by any means. Being upright is far more about the mind, whereas laying down on Shavasana is more about the body rejuvenating. Okay, so seated meditation might be rejuvenating for the mind and the energy that pulses through you, while Shavasana is going to be rejuvenating for the physical body. Okay, so for today's practice, you're welcome to take Shavasana if you like, but I would request that you attempt a seated meditation. So find a seated position that works for you, either sitting on a block like I am, cross-legged up on blankets, or at the edge of a chair where your feet are on the ground, your buttocks is on the chair, but your back is upright. And we'll do the simple Ujjayi breath with Kumbhak, which is a breath retention. So all you need to do is slow inhale through the nose. Inhale. A slight breath retention, really very gentle. And then exhale. At the bottom of the exhale, try not to inhale just yet. Just let it linger there. And then inhale, Ujjayi. That whisper through the nose. And at the top of the inhale, try not to exhale, try not to inhale, just kind of let the breath linger. It's called kumbhakam. And then exhale, whisper through the nose. Linger at the bottom, breath. And then inhale slow. Linger at the top. Exhale. Linger at the bottom. Inhale. Linger at the top. Exhale. Linger at the bottom. Inhale. Linger at the top. And exhale. Let the breath release and let the body start to breathe naturally on its own. Seated meditation, as you sit, the mind will present images. You'll hear sounds inside and out. This is a beautiful sign that you are alive. So as we meditate, we don't try to get rid of our aliveness. We simply shift our attention away from the specificity of thought or emotion and toward the energy that is creating it. Consciousness itself. Go deeper than the thought. Let that happen. Of course, the thoughts are going to be there, but you go below the surface, like diving below the surface of the ocean. The waves still exist upon the surface, but as you go deeper, it becomes more still, calm and steady. Shifting our attention inward. experience the mind's energy in the form of thought or emotions, simply shift your attention. Sorry for my dog. Tito. Shift your attention away from the surface and into the depths below the surface where the consciousness itself exists. The way you do this is by acknowledging and labeling the thought. Simply say thought or thinking or emotion or feeling. And then go back below the surface where the thought is arising from the source of consciousness, of energy within you. The very act of you observing or seeing your thought is consciousness itself, that is awareness that is deep within. So seeing the thought or emotion is the practice of meditation. So when you see a thought, this is a good thing because you have seen it. So who is that one that is watching? That is the consciousness within you. Take a full breath in and out. Awaken the fingers and toes slowly. Coming back to the surface. Using your breath to help you. Stretch the arms. Rub the palms together. Create heat. Place the palms over the eyes and take a breath in. Again, rub the palms together. Hands over the... Take a full breath in. One more time. Hands over the belly. And take a breath into your abdominals, into your hands. Massage the legs. Try to get down to your feet and your toes. Give a little touch there. Awaken back to the body. Hands to the heart center. We bow in honor of this body and the energy that is pulsing through it. Thank you all for your practice today, your courage to embody a mindset of santosha, of contentment with the challenges that we face on and off the yoga mat. in pursuit of the revelation, of the opening, of the expansion, of the breakthrough. Namaste. All right, everyone, enjoy your day. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for practicing. It's a pleasure to share with you. Again, I will send out another email to you with a link to watch the different seated positions for meditation so that you can find one that works for you. All right, take care of yourself. Bye.